word.
Esther.
Yes, Esther. So, yeah, not Easter, but
Pastor.
yeah, okay, okay. So, the Bible study, as I have mentioned last week, we are going to start on this Esther, and I like for you to have some idea. Anybody here familiar with David and Goliath story?
Yep.
Everybody,
Yes.
everybody, right? So David, in that, we talk about the characters, and one of the key thing in there is um, the stone, the stone that stuck Goliath. Um, what is so special about that stone?
Defeated the children.
It was a regular stone, but what is so special about it? And have that on the back of your mind as we go through this Bible study, and we will have a connection to that. All right. So, um, let's go to the first chapter, starting with verse 1, first chapter. I know Vanessa is going to help us out. Which translation are you reading from? It is NIV, right?
No.
New King James.
That's New King James. Awesome. There you go, New King James.
Now it came to pass in the days of Ahasuerus. This was the Ahasuerus who reigned over 127 provinces from India to Ethiopia. In those days, when King Ahasuerus sat on the throne of his kingdom, which was in Shushan, the citadel. Then in the third year of his reign, he made a feast for all his officials and servants, the powers of Persia and Media, the nobles and the princes of the provinces being before him. When he showed the riches of his glorious kingdom and the splendor of his excellent majesty for many days, 180 days in all. And when these days were completed, the king made a feast lasting 7 days for all the people who were present in Shushan, the citadel from great to small, in the court of the garden of the king's palace. There were white and blue linen curtains, fastened with cords of fine linen and purple on silver rods and marble pillars, and the couches were of gold and silver on a mosaic pavement of alabaster, turquoise and white and black marble. And they served drinks in golden vessels, each vessel being different from the other, with royal wine in abundance, according to the generosity of the king. In accordance with the law, the drinking was not compulsory, for so the king had ordered all the officers of his household that they should do according to each man's pleasure. Queen Vashti also made a feast for the women in the royal palace which belonged to King Ahasuerus. Circe. Oh, what is it?
No, you're right. She's right.
Ahasuerus? Okay. On the seventh day, when the heart of the king was merry and with wine, he commanded Mehuman, Biztha, Harbona, Bigtha, Abagatha, Zethar, and Carcass, 7 eunuchs who served in the presence of King Ahasuerus, to bring Queen Vashti before the king, wearing her royal crown, in order to show her beauty to the people and the officials, for she was beautiful to behold. But Queen Vashti refused to come at the king's command, brought by his eunuchs. Therefore the king was furious, and his anger burned within him.
Thank you. Just take a pause there. So here they're talking about, this story starts with the most powerful king of the time. His empire, from all the way it spread, I mean, like, in the old world order, the 3 continents, Africa, Asia, and Europe, those are the three continents there. But this guy, the Persian kingdom, um, yeah, his name is also called Xerxes. That's what.
That's what I said.
Yeah,
That's what I said.
no, the Ahasuerus. I'm sorry. What was that you said?
Ahasuerus.
Yeah, Ahasuerus
Yeah.
is also the same name is the same, but different cultures identify. One Greek culture identifies it differently, whereas the Persian culture identifies it differently.
Oh, okay.
That's why you see those two different names. Both of them are the same. Xerxes or Ahasuerus, both of them are the same. Okay?
NIV. NIV.
Yeah.
That's why it threw me off. I'm used to listening to NIV.
Yeah, but this is good. That's a good thing to know also, because these names were used differently by different group of people. It's in a way, many people even say, historians even say, that's kind of like a similar title as Pharaoh. Technically, his name is Artaxerxes. But that king, you saw his expanse, the kingdom of Persian. You will see, I mean, historically, if you see, there will be a lot of cultural influence in all these places. Like if you all the bandwidth they have given you from Ethiopia, which is in Africa, to India, all the way to this side of Asia. So if you see, if you ever observe the cuisine of them, you will see a lot of things that are similar. I mean, many times if you ever observe Ethiopian cuisine, they have curries with them. You would think, where did they get it? It's all this thing that happened where this empire was ruling all over, and food, the cultures, everything is getting mixed. So if you go to India right now, you will see a lot of Persian influenced cooking, Persian influenced clothing and cultures are still there in India. Anytime you get a chance to search those things, you will see that. But under this king, he is like the, if not the most powerful king of the time. He is even called as King of Kings because he's an emperor. He has so many kingdoms under him. I think in a similar way, you will see the depiction of him. If you ever watch this movie called 300, probably, I mean, most of the Christians won't watch it. I don't recommend watching it either. But in there, there will be a depiction of, it's a war between the Mother Persian kingdom and the Greeks. So this is the king who tries to conquer Greece and will not succeed. But it happens after him. But anyway, that's the historic part of it. So in his days, he was sat on the throne of his kingdom, which is in Shushan, the citadel. But there is a depiction that is being drawn here, but the story is starting in the Bible. We are seeing a start here, but the story starts even before this. But it's like, a movie starts somewhere in the middle, and then we go to the flashback of it and somehow figure out things. So the key person of our whole study is Esther. We don't see her origin, we don't see anything here. But you will understand it, that she was there before it. But there is an incident that is happening now that is something that is going to change the course of life changing event. There are many things that happen in our lives We may not talk much about it, but there are some incidents that do happen that change the course of your life for good or bad. This is something like that. That's where the attention is going there. And it's even like where he starts, it came to pass in the days of, I mean, it's like a good story narration kind of a thing is happening here. The the Persians are known for elaborate feasting and celebration. They still kind of hold that culture, that they will do so much of that. So here comes the king. What he is doing, in a way, is his parade or show off. He's showing off to everybody what all he has, what all the riches he have accumulated. What, in a way, many times if you look at places, they do the parade of their army tanks and all those kinds of things to show how strong they are, to make a statement in many ways. So people will know, okay, this is their capacity, this is what they know, this is what they can do. Kind of, in a way, on one side it is like a bragging story. On the other side, it is a story of creating fear to the people that are under him, for them to understand what he has and those kinds of things. And during this time, there are a few things that I want us to look at. There is a place that talks about, in the 6th verse, it talks about the culture, and it talks about the construction. It talks about all those kinds of things, how they used things back in the day, which is very appropriate by the time. And then you will see about the cups they were using. All of them are made of gold, and each vessel was different from the other. So in other words, everything is handmade. Everything is uniquely made. If you know, when you mass produce, it's cheap. That's why we get all things from China, where they are producing everything in a mass quantity, and then in through that the value will be cheaper. But anything that is rare and unique, the value will be higher. So what they're trying to depict here is the things that they had with them were so valuable, so unique. He had so many things that he can show off, saying, look, you can't find this anywhere else. What is the need for all these things? The need for all these things, it's like the story has a momentum every time. And when something is being told, there will be a momentum for it. When you are trying to go to a point, if you ever observe any movies, if somebody is being killed in the movies, they will always show their bad deeds. They'll have to portray them in the movies villains. They have to portray them so bad with all their evil acts and things like that, so that when the spectator who is watching there, when they watch it, they feel justified for that death, because they were depicted all those. So if we don't follow the story from the beginning or wherever it is coming from, what happens is we only see the end result, and we will think, oh, that guy got killed. That's all you will see. So that's the same thing that is important for us before we can start putting our judgment here, start concluding something here. So the king is a massive kingdom. He's got so many things to show off, and as you can see, the The party didn't go for 1 day or 2 days. It went on for hundreds. How many days was it exactly?
180.
180 days. 180 days of show off. 180 days. And you know they are not showing off the same thing. They're bringing new things every day. It's events. They're showing off new things all the time. So as that was happening, after all the show off is over, now comes the feasting time. Now comes the feasting time. So he's setting up a feast for everybody, and everybody in that area are allowed to come, whether they are rich or poor. There is no class distinction or anything like that. Everybody come. I'm gonna feed you as much as you want, and drink as much as you like. They are giving all those things there. The queen also made a feast for women. Now comes little bit of culture we have to bring in right now. So this is a Persian culture, not a Western culture. So now comes this place where they are celebrating separately. Men and women are celebrating separately. They weren't doing it together. So according to the culture there, that is how it is. They always stayed separate. And if you ever go to traditional churches in India, you still see that women go to the women's side of the church, men go to the men's side of the church. You will still see that happening there. But that's the culture of that place. Right or wrong, why is this, why is that? I'm not here to talk about those things. But the queen also had a feast, and remember this thing. What there is a key part that you want to understand. 9th verse. Would you mind reading that for us again, please?
Queen Vashti also made a feast for the women in the royal palace, which belonged to King Ahasuerus.
Which belonged to whom?
The king.
Okay. So now have how many of us believe all of this is God's? Everything that is here around us is God's.
Amen.
We do believe that, right? And then when we are bringing the tithe, what do we say? This is yours, and I'm bringing it to you. This is still yours, God. I'm bringing it to you. Okay? That's an acknowledgement when we are tithing. That's part of our acknowledgement that this has been given to me by God. I am bringing it back to serve Him. Okay? So now, come with that picture here. So what the queen was celebrating is not hers, but the king's. You with me? Mm-hmm. Whatever she is celebrating, she is not celebrating that is of hers, but the king's. Okay. So, in other words, whatever, let's put some things away in our journey, and we will add them also there in a bit. But the things that I want us to put away is, forget about male and female part here. Let's only look at king and queen part. Only look at that piece of the story. King and queen. Yes, queen is the powerful person, but she is still subjected to the king. Amen? The same, in a similar way, when we talk about marriage, people oftentimes misunderstand and misquote the laws and the rules that are for marriage are not for commoners. The way the Bible talks about, wives, submit to your own husbands. It doesn't say woman, submit to the men. Women submit to, that's not what it says. Under the confines of marriage, they both are coming under an institution, and in that institution, they have to go by the bylaws of the institution. Amen? If John and Vanessa are working in the same company, and John is the boss of Vanessa, she has to obey him. Is that right? How dare you tell me that doesn't come there? Because there, John is the boss. That's the institution. You with me on that? So we have to understand certain things. It's not about all. It is not always about the how we try to depict it, but we have to understand the confines of the matter. Here, this is not about man and woman, but it is about a king and a queen. If they were like just normal people, they would have said, hey, there was a rich man in the kingdom. Then these rules or whatever we are going to be talking down the line are not going to pertain onto them. Okay? So when we are talking about wife and husband, those rules are for them, not for woman and man. So we always have to keep that thing in our mind. And have you ever seen, watched a movie or listened to a story and you ended up having a different conclusion than the other person? Have you ever experienced that? So that's quite common. We can come to multiple conclusions based off of the same thing. Same thing that we are watching, same story that we are watching, same thing that is happening. We can come to different conclusions. The same thing is true with this thing. Many people can come to different conclusions. But I'm trying my best to stick to what was written. Those things are important. God adds certain things into the narration for us to give the premise. He tries to tell things rightly so we can understand the role of everything. Why does he have to explain about the linen curtains, or why does he have to explain about the marble stones, or why does he have to talk about the gold vessels? All those things have a purpose. None of the things, I think I'm going a little too much on the movie side, but I'm just going to make a point. Like, if there is this saying about in a movie making, there is this story writing, right? They write a story. And then there is another writing called screenplay writing. They write screenplay. In that screenplay, what they say is, okay, in a house, what are all the things that we are going to show? What will happen here? Why do we need this chair? Why do we need that table? If you're watching any movie, or especially any suspense thrillers, this is the clue. When the movie is going on, they will point you to certain things as the movie is going on. If you pay attention to that, there is no suspense really, because that has to come to a conclusion. If they showed a gun laying on the floor, that means somewhere in the story that will play a role. So you cannot show something in there that doesn't have a role in the story. The same thing is true when we are listening to these things. Every single piece of it that is presented to us has its own value and own importance in conveying the message that we need to be learning. So, here comes the king and the queen that's going on here. And on the seventh day, the 10th verse, I'm going after the 10th verse. Seventh day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine. That's another important part that we want to understand here. He was not just happy, but he was happy with wine. So there is some kind of intoxication that is happening there. And in other words, they are giving us an idea, okay, he is in a place, his judgment can be skewed. He is in that place. So, wine, he commanded. Now, he is a king. So, he is operating purely in his authority. He commanded. Did he do the right thing or wrong thing? That's debate. That we can debate later on. But He is a king, and he has commanded, and he sent all the 7 eunuchs to go bring the queen. There is an order, there is a commandment that went as a king, not as a husband, not even as a man. You following me? So the one who is commanding here is the king, not the husband, not the man. So, because many times people talk about this in from a feminist point of view and try to bring that connotation in the story, but I don't like to go in that direction, because what we are presented was not man and woman issue, it's a king and queen issue. So then he commanded, saying, okay, bring the queen before the king, wearing her royal crown, in order to show her beauty to the people and the officials, for she was beautiful to behold. There are few things that I wanted us to learn here, understand here. There are some group of people that would try to depict this as if the king called the queen naked, that she was to come naked and display herself in front of all these people, show herself off. That's some narration, but the text doesn't give you any evidence for it. So I'm not going to go with that narration. And the other point that I want us to think of is, it's an Persian culture. In Persian culture, women are not displayed public. They are to stay private. They're always going to be in private. Like for example, even now you will see in the cultures there, you will see the burqa or whatever those kinds of things that are implemented, because the woman is somebody private, not to come into the public things. That's not the common culture there. Okay? Don't argue with me about right or wrongs here. I'm not going there. Please don't fight with me. This is not about the moment. It's not about the movement that's going on. Let's live, okay? Let's live with this thing. Show her beauty to the people and the officials, for she was beautiful to behold. Now, there is something I want us to pay attention also. He was displaying all the things, all his crown jewels till now. For 180 days, he displayed everything he's got. And still the king feels empty. Still the king feels he didn't show the best he's got. He still feels that void in him. We need to talk about that. Let's think about that from a realistic point of view. Now, after showing all these things, he could have said, man, look at me. Look at my golden vessels, man. Are you not happy? But he is not happy with it. And now comes the most precious crown jewel. And now he is looking at her as the most significant things that's going to knock everybody's socks off. That was what was running in his mind. Is he being logical? Is he being cultural? Is he being appropriate? That's not the point there. Where the mind is running for him, at that point, he was just single line right now. He's completely focused on one thing. I need to show the best what I got. I showed all these things. There is something more that I can show off. It's more of like a bragging rights, let's say. So now he wants to bring the queen so everybody can see and behold and celebrate. Wow, what a beautiful wife king has. That was his objective. That's what I firmly think. But culturally, he knows very well, culturally that is not appropriate. Even if he was not drunk, in those 180 days of display, he never did this. And at the same time, you have to understand, from all these things, we have to understand King is not a sane person. Let's put it that way. Not a sane person in the sense, he is a show-off person. He likes to show off. He likes to show what all he's got. You saw that 180 days of celebration. Why would you need that? You got good stuff? Okay, keep it to yourself, man. Why do we all have to see that? Right? But that portrays his heart. And the other thing you have to understand also is nobody is allowed to enter this place, especially women are not allowed to come into this place unless king orders them to come in. All right? So there was an order from the king, a command from the king saying, hey, bring her in. There went the messengers. And the queen responded, refused to come, but the queen, 12th verse, refused to come at king's command, brought by his eunuchs. Therefore, the king was furious, and his anger burned within him. Okay, now I want us to understand a few things. When we slip, are we falling? That's what we have to understand here. He slipped because he ordered a command under the influence of alcohol. Okay, that's a slip. That's strike one, let's say. But after that, what happened? The response from the queen was no. The rejection, as soon as the rejection came, what happened to the king that slipped? Now he became furious. So in other words, he started falling. It is not always of us missing the mark. Now God knows that we will miss the mark. He wants us to repent. After missing the mark, are we going down? That's exactly what happens here. He missed the mark. He should not have commanded under the influence of alcohol. Remember, Solomon writes, it is not wise for a king to be under the influence of alcohol or intoxication. He talks about intoxication there. It is not good. He clearly says that. Intoxication is good only for according to his understanding, he says, only for somebody who have done utter labor, crazy labor, and they needed to sleep. It's okay for them to have something and fall asleep. That's what when he talks about there. I'm not saying go get drunk if you got tired. I'm not talking about that. But that's that's one of the things. For king, it is not wise, is what he says. It is not wise because you have too much of power. With higher power comes higher responsibility. You have higher power, you should be high on responsibility too. The things that we scrutinize the president, we don't scrutinize ourselves. We don't have that kind of power. We don't have that kind of power, but he or she, that office has an immense power. That's why they go through a lot of scrutiny. Okay? So the power dictates how responsible you and me should be. What kind of a role you should be playing. As a son, my son may not have the same responsibility as me as the father. my responsibility increases. So, because of his authority, he should not have done that, but he goes there, and immediately when the negative came, he was furious about it. Now, my question for all the precious ladies that are in my life is this: should the queen have said no or yes? Think about that. Think about that for a moment. So that's where many of us have struggled. Who is giving you the orders? Is that your boss? Obey it. That's what we have to understand. What does the commandment say? Honor your father and mother, that it might be good for you, that you might have good life. He never says, if your father is good, then honor him. So, what I'm going after is authority. Authority in our life has to be respected. And now again, another conclusion that we have to understand here is we will have to obey God no matter what. Sometimes, this is again, I want to draw a simile here between this and Abraham. The very thing that was given to him by God, God says, bring it to me and sacrifice it. Kill your son Isaac to me. I think in a way, if you look at it, the story seems like a parallel here. You are mine, come show yourself off. But the queen says no. Is it, sometimes I even wonder, if king had gone straight and asked her, maybe she would have come. Or is she upset because the message came to her through the messengers? I don't know. I'd like to entertain it for a minute. I'm not here to conclude about it. Probably not, because king always sent messages to the queen through the servants. But I don't know. Just want to get into that and explore it a little bit. Many times we do the same mistake too. You know, if God were to come to you and tell you, you should correct this, you shouldn't do this. If God were to come straight to you and tell you that, you would be more than willing to do that. But if the same message was sent to you through a messenger, how do we respond to it?
Send a note back.
That,
I'm busy.
that's what we do. That's what we do every day, every time. We look at the messenger and ignore the message. The message still came not from the messenger, the one who sent the message. The message that came to her, the order that came to her, did not come from these servants, but it came from the king who was reigning this whole Persian Empire. That's the king who ordered. So she refused to come at the king's command. And now king started going on the wrong, on the other side. Whose fault is this? You know, we have the saying, it takes two to. That's a perfect example here. It took two to do the tango here. Both of them. Many times we can take sides, but that doesn't give you a sound judgment on anything. It is his fault. It is your fault. I think this is another thing that we have to learn and embrace, especially even to have successful relationships or successful marriage. This is something we have to understand. It is not about who is right, who is wrong. It is about how strong are we. How strong are we together? How good are we together? Keep this story clearly in your mind, because this is what is going to flip in the scenes down the line. That probably would make more sense as we go down there. The queen, evidently, the king is in love with the queen. You will see it in the second chapter that he misses her when she is gone. But maybe could it have been an opportunity for the queen to win him over? Had she used her discretion? That's an opportunity we can think of. What comes to my mind is the story of Abigail. If you ever followed that story of Abigail, David and this Abigail's husband, Bible calls him as idiot. When you get a chance, read it. He was called idiot, but Abigail, the Bible says she is beautiful and she is even a woman of discretion. Bible says that. She's beautiful as well as a woman of discretion. So what she does is, King David was going to come kill her husband and destroy the whole family. It's over. It could have been done. But she uses her discretion and changes the whole situation into her favor. She changes everything. And even the king, the Bible says that David raised his sword. In other words, for the kings, according to the culture and the norm there, if you raise a sword against somebody, you better kill them. We have I was going for this concealed training. When I went to the concealed training, the first thing they'll say, you will never shoot to threaten. You will never shoot to threaten. If you are shooting, you're shooting to destroy. Because your life is at a threat. So the same thing there, the similar law is there. The king is supposed to, King David, even though he was not a king by then, he is still anointed by God. He was gonna go destroy that person completely. But this woman changes the wrath, controls the wrath of this person. Maybe she could have done something like that. Let's entertain that thought. So probably down the line we will have some answers for it. And now comes the part. He got the rejection, and this is another beauty of a king we have to understand, is he was not able to deal with rejection. Now, let's go fast forward a little bit and look at our King Jesus. How did he deal with rejection? Everybody rejected him, mocked him. Yet, he did not give up on his mission. That's who a king ought to be. Who cannot be swayed away easily. He has to have that focus. He has to have that commitment to their goal. It has to be there. But this person is missing that here. And he starts going down, and then he goes. Then the king please go ahead and read, please.
Then the king said to the wise men who understood the times, for this was the king's manner toward all who knew law and justice, those closest to him being Karshena, Shethar, Admatha, Tarshish, Miraz, Marsena, and Memucan, the 7 princes of Persia and Media, who had access to the king's presence and who ranked highest in the kingdom. What shall we do to Queen Vashti according to the law, because she did not obey the command of King Ahasuerus brought to her by the eunuchs? And Memucan answered before the king and the princes, Queen Vashti has not only wronged the king, but also all the princes and all the people who were in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus. For the queen's behavior will become known to all women, so that they will despise their husbands in their eyes. So they will despise their husbands in their eyes when they report. King Ahasuerus commanded Queen Vashti to be brought to him in before him, but she did not come. This very day the noble ladies of Persia and Media will say to all the king's officials that they have heard of the behavior of the queen. Thus there will be excessive contempt and wrath. If it pleases the king, let a royal decree go out from him, and let it be recorded in the laws of the Persian and in the Medes, so that it will not be altered, that Vashti shall come no more before King Ahasuerus, and let the king give her royal position to another who is better than she. When the king's decree, which he will make, is proclaimed throughout all his empire, for it is great, all wives will honor their husbands, both great and small. And the reply pleased the king and the princes, and the king did according to the word of Memucan. Then he sent letters to all the king's provinces, to each province in its own script, and to every people in their own language, that each man should be master in his own house and speak in the language of his own people.
So one of the things that catches my attention here is the decree, king's decree. What comes to my mind is the decree by Caesar Augustus, that everybody should have their names written. And that's the connection to Jesus Christ when you come there. There is always something that we have to understand what king does. You know, the heart of the king is in the hand of the Lord. There is something that is happening that they may not even understand. Caesar Augustus didn't know that Jesus is going to be born. But what he did has so much of a significance for the birth of Jesus Christ and his journey. Whereas here, the decree is happening here that is kind of creating room for Esther. You with me? So the decrees have values. That's why it is so important to understand what is happening in the government. It could make or break our lives. Are they lined up with God's will or not is an important thing for all of us as Christians to be concerned of. Any laws that are passing in this land, it could make or break us. We have to be vigilant about it. I know tomorrow is a National Day of Prayer. It's a good opportunity where we can seek the face of the Lord for the loss of this land. And anything that is happening, we can repent of it and ask for God's unity to take over the land. It's a beautiful opportunity. As a nation, we can come under God and celebrate that. So the decrease that is happening here is not only, it is aimed at somebody, but you will see the effects of it in some other people. So don't think, oh, that's not going to affect me. It will. Don't ever think of those things. We have to be actively praying, actively participating in things like that, because it can make our lives or destroy our life. You know, nobody ever thought that one woman single-handedly can take the Bible off the school. Yet she did. And ever since that happened, you know, nobody knew about mass shootings before that. Does the history show anything about it? Happening such and such in schools? And as a matter of fact, they possessed more guns than this generation. So in other words, we have to be vigilant about what is happening that could make or break us. It could affect us or even the generations to come. Many times we are so complacent, oh, it's not coming to me, I'm okay. Thank God I'm not in the school anymore. That for me, sorry to say this, is a very lazy Christian statement. Thank God I am not here at this hour. No, that's not a good answer. If it happened in Sri Lanka, it could happen anywhere. It is not for us to say, thank God I live here. No, it is for us to step up and pray and seek the face of God and seek His protection over this land and keep calling upon the godly laws to come upon this land. Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. We cannot miss that. We have to have that on a regular basis. So now the decree went out. Okay, now the people around, the leaders, now that the incident has happened, now they have to do damage control. It's always, many times, it's the damage control. And it's like many times we are reactive than proactive. This is a situation like that. They are reacting to what has happened. Now, how can I control this? What can I do? How can I do this? How can I implement this thing? What could be the foreseen consequences, unforeseen consequences? They're only humans. They are limited. That's why it is important for us to pray for our lawmakers. They're only humans. They can't foresee everything. They don't know everything. Though some of them act like one, they don't. They need divine support. That's one of the reasons the founding fathers, the people put in a place, in God we trust. That's an important thing. Everything that is done from the first president, so help me God, so help me God. They knew they can't do this thing without the help of their Creator. And it is our responsibility as believers also to pray for them that they can have divine help into their lives. Oh, I don't agree with their policies. Who asked you to agree with them? Pray for them. These people are bad for our country. Pray for them. Pray for anybody. The party you like, party you don't like. Pray for them. That's a Christian job. That's our responsibility to do. That's our job to do. So the decree will have its own effects. The laws that are coming into the land will have its own things. Then comes the next part where king comes to the realization. What have I done? Now the queen is not there anymore. Queen is gone. Bye-bye. The woman whom he loved, the woman whom he thought was the precious thing in his kingdom, gone. Nobody did it to him. In all reality, it's just his own doing. Got him there. Many times, if only we can pause and think, we could avoid so much of trouble in our life.
Amen.
That could be true with this king also. If only he paused and thought, I showed off. What is there for me to prove? Everybody here knows I am the king. I'm the great king. The King of Kings. Everybody knows how rich I am. Everybody knows how great my treasures are. If only that guy could have stopped there. But his weakness, his weak moments, whatever you call it, caused the things. We are the same way. You know, it is easy for us, it is simple, always be quick to repent. Be quick to repent. Don't drag it. Don't drag it. I'm sorry. What's wrong with it? I'm sorry, Lord, I have sinned. I'm sorry, Lord, I messed it up. I'm sorry I missed the mark. Immediately going back to our King. Immediately going back to our Master. It only makes it better. He never will turn down. I think that's one thing that I would like for us to focus on, and we will get to the next chapter soon.